Francisco, welcome.
Thanks, Michael. Great being here.
Yeah, glad to have you on and looking forward to this conversation. So let's start off. How would you describe what Factum Global does?
In simple words, we help companies expand globally. And what that means is when an organization is thinking about expanding into new horizons, we help them determine whether or not they should do it. Often clients come to us and say, we're thinking about it, but we don't know if we should. If they should do it, then we help them figure out how. So that's sort of the strategy piece of what we do. And once they have a plan in place, we help them execute. So essentially from A to Z, we help organizations get into new markets around the world.
And how do you define your ideal client? If you can select a dream client to work with, what would they look like in terms of size or geography or industry or any other kind of factors that you use to identify who the ideal client is?
I will tell you about that. I would say that our ideal client is someone that, or an organization that understands that they don't know all the answers, and that they're, willing to sort of explore other possibilities so that we can really become a partner to them. In terms of what you're asking, we tend to try to work with companies that serve small to medium size. That is the type of company that we target. However, as anyone who be in consulting, and I know you were in consulting, understands that doesn't always end up being the case. So we have several clients that are large companies, organizations that are looking for our help in different areas. But typically, small to medium-sized companies, minimum serve 10 million in revenue, so that they actually have the ability to do what we offer, and somewhere all the way up to like 800 million. It's sort of where we see the sweet spot. We are industry agnostic because of what we do. We do research, strategy, execution. Our services are very tailored to the needs of our clients. So we move across different industries. However, we do see a lot of interest from the telecommunications industry, from fintech and technology in general, which should not be surprising to you, as a lot of the technology companies that are essentially customer focused are global in nature just by what they do. We do a little bit of healthcare as well. And interestingly enough, for maybe some of the people in your audience, we work a lot with associations. So the nonprofit association sector is another vertical that we work very closely with.
And what's the real problem that they're having when they come to you? What's the challenge, or what's the big kind of opportunity that they're excited about when they decide to actually engage with you?
Michael, it varies a lot. I think typically you can sort of put it in buckets. One is a lack of capacity, right? So we know what we want to do. We know that we need to do this, but we don't have the manpower, or we don't know exactly how to do it. We know the what, but not the how. Or organizations that really have no idea what they're looking for, right? They need to grow. They're trying to look for different ways in which they may be able to do that, and they want to explore from scratch. If going global is something that they should do. But when you go, deeper into conversations with the clients, it can range from help us open an office in X country to can you please help us do a feasibility study on whether or not we should explore X, Y, and Z markets, to, hey, we've already done all the research, but we don't have the strategy, or we've done all that work, we're ready to execute. Can you help us on the ground? And so anywhere in that spectrum, we're going to find companies that are coming to us for different things. But again, typically is a capacity issue or a lack of knowledge kind of situation.
Right. And just to give everybody kind of a sense of the size, the scope of the company today, how many team members, employees, what is your kind of average project value, annual revenue, just anything that you're able to share, Francisco?
Of course. Well, we're still a small business. We actually started operating in 2019. As you can imagine, the pandemic hit, and international business,
Sure.
that means a complete shutdown. So we've been in business for about 3 to 4 years. We have a team of roughly under 20 people that include our full-time staff, part-time employees, and associate consultants. We're still, again, a small company under 5 million in revenue. So we're still building. Our models
Hmm.
have been proven. We have clients now that have been with us from the very beginning and continue to renew. An average contract size is probably in the neighborhood of 150,000. We have contracts that are much larger than that. We have contracts that are much smaller than that. Some people hire us to do facilitation services at the $10,000, $15,000 kind of range. But other companies, our ideal clients, have been with us for a long time and can spend anywhere between 150 to $300,000 a year with the company.
Yeah. All right, let's now go a little bit back in time. I know you shared with me before we hit the record button, you are from Colombia originally. What were you doing before you started this company?
So if you take me back all the way to Colombia, I was in the university back then in those days, and had in high school had done an exchange program in West Virginia, the U.S. Had built a lot of friends and that those kinds of things. And as I was going to college in Colombia, it was those days that Colombia was not known for the right reasons. There was a lot of
Mm,
violence. There were things that were going on, and my parents at the time wanted to ensure that I was okay, and so they sort of convinced me to go back to the U.S. And so I transferred my credits and finished university at Marshall University in West Virginia. And then one thing leads to the next. I get my first job. I was in healthcare initially. And the idea was that I was going to go back to Colombia after I graduated. But here I
mm,
am so many years later. I started in healthcare. I worked in there for about a year and a half and realized this is not for me. And then I went into consulting, doing organizational efficiency, working with international clients, and I started sort of finding my way. And that led me to pursue an MBA, which I did at the American University in Washington D.C. And subsequently, I joined the American Chemical Society, which is the largest scientific society in the world, a non-for-profit association. I had no
right.
idea about that organization or the industry, Michael, but my job there was to help the organization become global. So it was an organization
Mm,
that for many, many years had been very focused on the US market and had realized in order to serve its members and fulfill its mission, needed to really truly have a global presence, a global footprint. So we started that process. I was with them for about 10 years and I helped them become a truly global organization. And one of the things that I found when I was doing this is that it was very difficult to get help. So there was no firm that I could find that was similar to who we are right now. And so as a result, I was working with the big four consulting firms, Deloitte and KPMG and those types of organizations, and with underground resources like marketing firms and law firms. And so for any market
mm,
that we were trying to enter, we were pursuing four, five, six different contracts with different organizations that were helping us do different things. And I thought, hey, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to bring all this under one roof, and that was sort of the inspiration for Factum Global. So now we do what I was doing internally at that organization. We're doing it for many other clients and helping sort of
yeah.
make things easier for them.
And so when you had that idea, you launched, how did you go about getting your first few clients?
Well, that happened even before we launched. So I had a
Okay,
variety of
tell
people.
tell us that story. Yeah.
I had a variety of people that had similar jobs to what I had. I was director of global strategy and market development at ACS, and I was talking to a lot of my counterparts, both in the nonprofit sector and the for-profit sector, and we were all facing similar challenges. And it didn't matter how large or how small these organizations were. ACS was at the time a $600 million organization. Is now a lot larger than that. But I was talking to people that had multi-billion-dollar companies that were managing these kind of things in multi-billion-dollar companies, as well as smaller organizations of 5, 10 million. We all have the same issue.
Mm,
Too complex, right? There's too much to do. You're trying to enter one, two, three, five markets at once. You're trying to understand how to do it. You're trying to build partnerships and alliances. And not a single place where you could say, hey, I have a partner that's going to help me do this. So some will take you this far, help you with the research, others will help you with the strategy, and then you have to figure out piecemeal sort of your execution. So talking to a lot of those people, they motivated me to start this company and said, hey, if you did something like that and you can actually make it work, we're gonna be there because we need those types of services. So when Factum Global actually started operating at the end of 2019, we already had a couple of our first clients that we had signed, and we sort of hit the ground running.
That's a great way to start. So let's now fast forward 2024. How are you generating leads? Like, what are you doing to build the pipeline? What's working well for you all right now to do that?
Well, I'm still learning, Michael. If I sat here and told you I have figured it out, I'd be lying. So anyone who's listening and has the magic bullet, please call me. We do that through a variety of ways. I like to be myself and our executives try to be in as many venues as we can to speak about the topics that we know and share some of the information um, that we're collecting from our clients and the knowledge that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So we speak at conferences and events and those types of things to get our name out there. We have built a pretty interesting technology stack that helps us to proactively reach out to clients and target the industries and the type of personas that we're looking to go after. So, on any given time, right now, as you and I are speaking, there are emails going out to people that we have identified as potential clients that are probably looking for the type of services that we have. We have uh, alliances and partnerships with other types of organizations that sort of work in the periphery of what we do that are not competitors. So accounting firms, law firms, employee of record organizations, other types of organizations that work internationally and provide ancillary services. And sometimes we actually subcontract some work with them when we're helping our clients, but it's also a source of leads for us. So, we may have a marketing firm that is working with a particular client and trying to build a campaign for a particular country, and they realize they're trying to enter a new place, and they may send them our way. So it's sort of like a strategy that has different channels, but we're still
Yeah.
perfecting it. Is my biggest thing every day is to try to figure out how do we bring more, and of course everything started organically. So we had a good
Yeah.
year and a half or two of consistent growth through or sort of organic growth through referrals. And we still get those referrals, but now we've sort of gotten way beyond that in the last year and a half, and we're proactively reaching out and having a lot of conversations that we were not having before.
And would you say that the emails, kind of the email outreach that you're doing, is that generating leads and opportunities and conversations, or is it still the stage where that isn't happening yet, but it's something that you're working on?
No, it is. It is generating leads and
Okay,
conversations. It's already led to business. Several
great.
proposals are on the table right now with potential clients. So it's working. It does work.
Okay,
It's a
yeah,
constant refinement of messages, right? So we start
sure,
with an assumption that something is going to resonate, and we test against something else, and perhaps something that we weren't thinking that was as needed is what's
yeah.
getting a lot of attention. So we try to be able to move as fast as we can in responding to those needs.
Could you give an example? And the reason I'm asking is I think a lot of people uh, want to do something similar. They want to reach out to their ideal clients. You know, they can identify them through different places, different services, so on and so forth. But the challenge is, how do you get in front of an ideal client, somebody that maybe doesn't know you that well yet, or maybe doesn't know you at all, and how you do that in a way where the message will resonate with them. They don't just see you as necessarily a salesperson trying to sell. So what have you found? What kind of lessons have you learned, or has your team learned, as you've gone through that process of developing these messages to get them to the point where you're actually generating, inquiries, appointments, meetings, proposals, and business? What stands out for you?
Uh, well, first, technology aspect of things. I personally was not as informed as the types of different tools that are available out there. And I've been amazed by what some of these tools can do. So we started
Mm-hmm.
adapting our processes and bringing technology, and quickly I realized, how inefficient and ineffective we were before then in trying to talk
Mm-hmm.
to customers. There are tools out there that allow you to filter a search by size of company, by industry, by titles. So in our case, we're in obviously international expansion. We like titles like, head of international expansion or head of business development, and
Right.
anything that
Is
has a
this like
global.
a LinkedIn Sales Navigator or Apollo or something kind of
We
like
use
that, or
Apollo. We use
Zoom
Link.
Info or
We
okay,
do use Apollo. We use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. We use
right,
other tools like Gazelle. There are a number of other tools that we have assembled, and they're sort of integrated to each other with our CRM. We use HubSpot for
right,
it. But yeah, so you can go in that and you can do your filters and you can identify and get lists that are somewhat decent, and start testing your messages. So the first one is the technology. Secondly is don't fall in love with your messages, right? It's sort of,
mm,
we all think we know exactly what our customers want, and really what we've learned is we got to test different things. And I like to talk to my team about sort of the Nike or a clothing company analogy, where if you're in your social media, you start seeing things from them. Maybe they start with tennis shoes and they see it doesn't work, and then they try to sell you a T-shirt and maybe it doesn't work, but then finally they go to a sweater and that's what you were looking for, and they caught your
mm-hmm,
attention. Similarly, for us as a consultant firm, we have different services that we offer. So there are people out there that perhaps are looking for research. Others may be looking for facilitation services for strategy. Others may be just trying to enter the Middle East or North Africa. And
mm-hmm,
unless they read exactly what they're looking for, it's just more noise. So
right,
one of the things that we've learned is try very different messages with language that is
mm-hmm,
specific to the things that we offer, just to see how people react to it, and so that we can see how many people are looking for service A versus service B. That has been very
right,
successful to us. Um, and then finally, I would say that just consistency, right? It took a long time, and you asked the question, I'm sure, because you're probably very familiar with this. It doesn't happen overnight. So these campaigns
yeah,
take time. People will see your messages 4, 5, 6, 7 times before they click on it or before you get your attention. And if you just figure that this is not working and you stop, then it's never going to work. You got to be consistent with it. And so those are some of the
yeah,
main sort of lessons that we've learned through all this process. But as I told you, we're still learning. We're trying to refine. We're
sure,
trying to
yeah.
figure out what's working, and respond to those needs of our customers as we learn through
And
those tools.
who's running all this inside the organization? Is it one person or more? And like, what is the people power behind this to actually get this running? Is it a full time position of one person or more? Or what does that look like?
It is a full time position that drives sort of the technology and helps us do the work that we just described, and it's an all hands on deck when it comes to meeting with potential customers and
Right.
exploring opportunities and closing deals. And so I'm having meetings. Our chief operating officer is having dinner
Sure.
or meetings, and every executive in the organization is having these meetings
Yeah.
um, to to try to understand what the customers are looking for and try to close those deals.
Right.
So I think business
So
development is
just
everybody's responsibility.
yeah, and so just try and summarize that a little bit and tell me if this is right or maybe I'm off the mark here. So you and other executives inside the company are having meetings all the time. You're looking for what people are talking about. You're sharing that information with kind of with the team internally. But there's one person inside the company whose full time job is kind of pushing the buttons, sending the emails, updating the copy, doing whatever is necessary to essentially generate the initial conversations. And you or somebody else in the team would actually go and have those conversations. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. Yes. So that person is helping us have better meetings, because essentially is
Yeah.
understanding and pre-qualifying those leads, and turning them into qualified leads that then we come in to have conversations with and try to turn into an opportunity. And a real opportunity is
Yeah.
at the time where they say, well, okay, well, give me a proposal. right? And so we come in to try to get to the point where they ask for a proposal and try to close those deals. But there is someone whose only job is to generate leads for us, push those buttons, send those emails, learn from the data. So
Right. Yeah.
that this person is on a regular basis analyzing data, talking to us, letting us know what they think is working, not working, and testing, against
Right.
what's working to try to make it work even better.
Got it. And that's an internal person like on the team, or is it external?
No, it's internal. We have a full-time employee that does this.
Got it.
That
Okay.
person is supported by an external consultant that is an expert on this. And when we need that person to take it to the next level, or we run into issues, or
Right.
when this person has questions, she has an additional resource that she can go to for technical questions to see what's the latest with technology. I mean, those types of things. So we sort of creating an
Makes sense.
ecosystem where this person is fully supported by all of us, but also by this external expert that can serve sort of a mentor to her as she grows her expertise and helps us develop all these things.
So you mentioned that you have 16, 18, somewhere under 20 people currently, which includes full time and then some part time or contractors. For those that are working towards growing as well to those levels, or even if they're at a similar level and they're looking to go beyond, I'm wondering if there's anything that you always have top of mind, Francisco, as you think about hiring, that the decision around how much money to spend, or when to invest in bringing a new person on, and tying that to ROI, or what, like, is there any kind of calculation or formula or just mindset or kind of decision making approach that you use to decide when it makes sense to hire, or when it makes sense to hold off?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a perfect science, and like with everything else, you're learning every day. But and I've learned the hard way a couple of times. Where
What does
we've
that mean when
hired,
you say you've learned the hard way?
well, we've hired a couple of people at different times that perhaps we didn't need to hire, and could have handled it in a
Right.
different way, right? We could have done a 1099 sort of
Mm-hmm.
agreement. Um, and it increases your cost, right? Because you're obviously
Sure.
one of the things that we take pride on is that even though we're a small organization, we want to provide as many benefits as we can to our employees. We want to provide a wonderful environment to work, but also tangible benefits, and so that costs money.
Yeah.
And we cannot afford to have people on the bench, right? That's not something we can do. So if there isn't enough work, we're not one of the big four that can have a number of people just waiting there for the next project. They need to be utilized.
Right.
They need to be working. So one of the things that we're doing is we're looking for people who are okay getting their hands dirty in other areas, right? So yes, you were hired to do A, B, and C, but if we have a need here and there, we expect you to please give a hand. We all do it. I do it, right? Anyone in the organization is got to do it, because we don't have enough size yet to be able to have people dedicated to each function. We all do a little bit of everything here, and that's helped us quite a lot. So when we're hiring, we're looking for people who want to grow, who want to learn things in different areas and not just specifically on what they do. And we want to make sure that we really truly need those people when we hire them. We try to rely also on contractors, and what that helps us is that we can get high caliber people um, that we could otherwise not afford as a direct hire. So
Mm-hmm.
we've been very lucky to bring in people that are highly experienced in the things that they do, that add value because they know industries that perhaps others don't know,
Sure.
or areas of the business on what we do, and they're very specialized on parts of what they do, etc. And they come in gladly under a 1099 because they are so senior that they're not looking to get employment, right? They want business
Right.
themselves,
And
and
just, sorry to interrupt, Francisco, but just for
of
those
course,
that, since we're very international, right? Those that don't understand, that may not be familiar with 1099. So, right, a contractor as
contractor.
opposed to a full time person is what we're talking about. Okay.
Absolutely, yes, or similar, and
Amazing.
that's a good point, because I'm talking to you like we're here in the U.S. and we have contractors in different parts of the world, and they're not
Right.
1099. They're similar structures. Yeah.
Correct.
Um,
Right. And so with that all in mind, I'm wondering, as you hire contractors, is there a place where you find you tend to go to find these people? Like, are you using any marketplaces, like a Catalant or something else like that, or are you just tapping into a job posting on LinkedIn or sending emails out to just your database? How do you approach finding those people, especially when they're contractors?
There are two types of contractors that we're using. There is the very senior contractor that comes to work for us. And those come through our networks and asking
Okay.
people that we know in the industries that we want to find them, or with the skill set that we're looking for, etc. We rarely publish those types of positions. We literally just go through our networks until we find who we're looking for.
Yeah.
There are contractors that we have in supporting roles, and those we tend to go to. Uh, there's an organization or a platform called Handshake that allows you to post jobs that end up getting in front of X number of universities. So you have to essentially just put your company profile, and the universities accept you or reject you to recruit at their, to their students. And we have
Right.
relationships with a handful of universities, and we post positions through those channels. We put them on LinkedIn and get resumes to try to figure out who has the skill sets that we're looking for. So it really depends on the type of person that you're going after. The more senior the person, the less we rely on those types of things, and the more we rely on networks. If there are things that are specific, like marketing support, or research support, or things like that that are more operational in nature, then
Mm.
yes, we post those positions. We go through some of those things, and we tend to support a couple of universities that we're very engaged with. And we have an agreement with American University, where I graduated from my MBA, where almost on a semester basis, we are bringing groups of MBAs and undergrads that are doing projects for us, and that serves as well for us to see talent. And we've hired a couple of people
Sure.
through that mechanism, because
Yeah.
they're doing projects for us. So it's like a 6 month interview,
Right.
and then we
Yes.
take
Yeah.
them through the process. Yes.
No, it sounds like a great opportunity and channel there. I imagine, Francisco, that for you, over the last few years, and as you've been hiring more and more, your role and kind of where you spend your time has likely changed, right? The usual kind of path is that a founder like yourself would start off, early days doing a lot of the delivery, being very, very involved in the actual delivery of the work and client kind of engagements and communication. And as you're hiring people, there's probably some changes. And so I'm wondering for you if that's been the case, and if so, what does that look like? If you kind of think about your typical weekly schedule, or just your overall pie of time, how you break up that pie in terms of how much time do you spend on different activities?
I'm still trying to break out of that cycle, Michael. I wish I could tell you
Okay.
otherwise, but I'm still doing consulting. I'm still engaged in many of the engagements, especially with clients that are long-term clients.
Mm,
As I was telling you, we have clients that are multi-year clients now, and we're
sure.
very deeply involved with them. And I tend to be involved with those types of clients. Um, Over time, I wish I could spend less time consulting and more time just sort of directing or looking from higher up and providing advice and answering questions
Mm,
and coaching my team as they do that. We're getting there. It's in some areas, and hopefully we'll get there at some point. But I'm still doing both. I'm doing that. I'm spending a lot of time on business development. A CEO's number one job is business development, and trying to figure out how to
yeah.
not only bring new clients, but keep the ones that we have happy, so that they continue to hire
Right.
us for more work. And I also spend a lot of time just coaching my team, and understanding what's going on with our finances, what's going on with our marketing, with our business development efforts, from the behind the scenes kind of thing. So one day is not the same as the other. And if you think of that pie that you asked me, I think it really depends on if I have a whole lot of deliverables with a client, I'm spending more time doing
Mm,
consulting than I'm doing running the company. But I try
right.
to spend at least 60% of my time in the company versus consulting. And Um,
Right.
Sometimes it
So
works,
would
sometimes
you
it
say
doesn't work.
just to look at that? I mean, I know you're saying that it depends on kind of the week or the month, but in general, if you had to assign what percentage of your time right now, on average, you're spending consulting versus business development versus, call it leadership, company stuff, how would you maybe look at those three buckets?
I'd say
What
probably
percentage would they be?
spending 35% on consulting, probably about 20% on leadership of the company, etc., and the rest is business
Okay.
development. Everything. I mean, I
Got it. Okay.
I try to spend as many hours of my time in something that is going to bring more business to the organization. If I can
Yeah.
do that in other ways, then fantastic, building relationships, etc. But um, yeah, and if you ask me the ideal scenario, that portion of the pie would be bigger and bigger and bigger. I am very lucky and extremely lucky to have an amazing chief operating officer. So he's taken a lot of that responsibility of running the day to day of the organization away from me, and he's
Mm-hmm.
supervising all the different areas of the company. Um,
Yeah.
we talk on a daily basis, two, three, four times, but he's doing it, and he's taken all this
Yeah.
away from me, which has allowed me to do the things that I'm talking about and focus more on business development as
Sure.
well.
For sure. You mentioned earlier on that the average kind of project value, might be about 150,000. Can obviously go up significantly from there. But you also mentioned that you have some projects or work kind of more maybe in facilitation that might be 10, 15,000. How do you think about that? I mean, so you have only a certain amount of capacity inside of the company, and I wonder why why take on the 10 or 15,000 dollar work when you have other work that's 150 or significantly more. What's the kind of the strategy or the decision around taking on that lower valued work? It's because to some that might seem like, isn't that a distraction from you're filling your calendar, your capacity with low value work that potentially could be a much larger project? So how do you kind of think about that?
Well, it all comes down to level of effort, and so what we're trying to do is diversify our sources of revenue, and those larger
Mm,
contracts, 75, 100,000, anything above that, have a much larger cycle for decision making, right? So the clients are thinking about whether it's you or another competitor, and they're asking a lot of questions, and they're reviewing the proposal, and we're adjusting.
mm,
And when we start the work, it's usually at least 6 months or something that we're going to be investing into an engagement like that. We are trying to think about this in terms of like a pyramid, where at the top of that pyramid we have those types of contracts and our sweet spot, which is consulting and advising, but we add a lot of
mm-hmm,
value from other in other ways, right? So for example, we have the I was telling you about facilitation. That to us is like making bread. It's like a repetitive
mm,
process that we understand very well, and it takes about a day of preparation, a day of facilitation, and you're done. So
mm-hmm.
it's cash flow for the organization. It allows you to
Right.
do these smaller cycles, get money in the bank faster. We do trainings, so same thing. The training's already packaged. We know how to deliver the training. We know exactly how we do it. We tweak it depending on our audiences and those types of things, but it doesn't require a whole lot of preparation, a lot of thinking, a lot of work,
Mm,
and it can be executed fast. So if you get
right.
into a deal where you're selling training, it's all just delivery pretty much, and again, you can cash in and contribute towards your bottom line. So that's how we think about it. So if it was a pyramid, at the bottom of
Mm-hmm.
that pyramid, we have all these different things that add to that. But most importantly is that those smaller services could be an entry point for bigger contracts. So
Right.
we don't think short
Yeah.
term. You could be
Yeah.
facilitating a strategy session, you're learning all about an organization, and then you realize, hey, you guys really need this and that. You're missing research, you don't understand what's happening here. You have an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
there. We can help you figure that out. And so those entry points can potentially lead to other types of things. I'll give you an example. Recently I did a facilitation thing I did it myself because this was a person from my own personal network. They asked me to do it. I went, I did the facilitation thing. This is for a board of directors. And fast forward 3 months, and one of the members of that board of director, who is an executive of his own company, called me to explore an opportunity to do some work for them, for this other company. So he was in this company's board, but he works for another company, and
Right.
so it led to more business. So I don't think that if you're listening, I think the smaller dollar amount things are not to be ignored. They can be an entry
Yeah.
point. You can look at them as business development. They also move the cash flow.
Yeah, no, I think what you're hitting on some really important points. It's almost like a discovery offer, right? Gives people a little taste of what it's like to work with you, build the trust, get the familiarity, and as you said, right, that can lead to significantly larger projects, especially because usually the first project is the hardest one to
Mhm.
sell or to sell. Like the first sale is always the hardest one, right? So once you get your foot in the door, even with something smaller, it makes it easier to turn into something much larger. So that's great. I wonder. We're going to wrap up here in just a couple of minutes, but I wanted to ask you, Francisco, about how do you deal with challenges? And here's the context. I think every leader, every founder, co-founder of a business gets punched in the stomach at times, right? Something happens, and it's not initially doesn't feel like a great thing, um, yet here you are, right? You're still here, you're still going, the company's growing. So my guess is that you've probably been punched in the stomach once or twice before. You've had some challenges, had some experiences, and I wonder for you over the years of building this business. I know it's not that long yet, but you've gone through some interesting times with a pandemic and everything else. How do you respond to challenges when that kind of situation happens where something catches you off guard, or there's a really big disappointment, or maybe you lose a client, or just something, whatever it might be? Is there a mindset that you bring forward that you feel is really critical to allowing you to continue moving forward?
Yeah, I think from the very beginning, I knew this was going to be a roller coaster, right? It's you hear it every time, and if you're into soccer, football for the rest of the world, Lionel
Right.
Messi is the best example of a 35-year-old overnight success, right? Everybody's like, oh, how successful you are. And it was overnight. No, it wasn't overnight. This guy had been training his entire life and practicing his entire life. And the same can be said of Michael Jordan and everybody else, right? So every success story out there that we think will happen overnight went through up and downs. People fail many, many times before they succeed. So have I been punched in the stomach? Many times. I told you about that pandemic. I mean, think about it. We had been operating for 6 months, and the pandemic hit. So our clients put everything on hold for almost a year. Some of them even longer than that. Potential clients that we had in our pipeline said, "Hey, Francisco, it's not the right time. Let's see what happens here." And I had to make a decision. Hey, am I going to take this as a you tried, but this happened and is out of your control and just shut down and stop, or are you gonna keep pushing? And I made that decision. I said, look, this is gonna end. This cannot last forever. I'm just gonna take this as an opportunity to bring the right people around me and try to figure out how to get this done. I am so lucky. We have an amazing advisory board. These are outstanding people. Everyone in that board is way better than me. And I can rely on them to ask questions, to put the problems in front of them and say, we're facing this situation. Have you been here before? What do we do? Do you know anyone who can help us? I think our mindset is that we know that the problems are going to come. We know that the
Mm,
issues are going to be there. Um, but if we are surrounded by people that can help us figure those things out, we know we're going to be able to solve those issues and come out stronger. So that's sort of the mindset. And I'm very lucky. It's not only the advisory board, the team that we have built. I spoke about my chief operating officer already once. He's amazing. The team that we have built, everyone who comes into the organization, if they don't click with that kind of mindset and that kind of personality, to call it somehow, that the culture that we've been trying to build, they're not going to last very long, because
right.
it's a startup mentality that we have to have on a daily basis. And and we have to be resilient. But yeah, it's not easy. It's I didn't have all this gray when I started, and it's getting up there.
Well, that's all what entrepreneurship is all about, right? It's I think that's really what makes successful entrepreneurs successful is uh, they can bounce back, right? They don't let the challenges or the roadblocks stop them. It might slow them down, it might knock them down, but they get back up, and clearly that's the path you're on. Francisco, I want to thank you so much for coming on here today, sharing just a bit of your story and journey with us, so that people can learn more about you, about your company, everything that you have going on. Where should they go? What's the website or one place they should go to do that?
Thanks, Michael. So the website is www.factumglobal.com. That's FACTUM global.com. Everything you need is right there. We're also on LinkedIn. We're on Twitter, now X. But truly, just find us on the website or LinkedIn. That's probably where you're going to find the most information. Thanks for having me, Michael. This is exciting. When you get to talk a little bit about your journey, and I've actually listened to a few of your episodes and learned so much from other entrepreneurs. And I think we have a lot to learn from each other. Like I said, our company is very young, so I'm not here to teach in any way. I'm learning every day, and I'm getting those punches almost on a weekly basis. So very happy to be here. Thanks for having me, and it's been very enjoyable.
All right, everyone. We will link all that up in the show notes. Head over to consultingsuccess.com to find that. Francisco, thanks again.
Thanks, Michael.